another edition of the magical world of G. Michael Vasey. Today, I'll be covering a creepy topic, that's close to my heart because I experienced it on a train ride from Vienna to Hamburg one night. The experience is usually called the old hag or sleep paralysis. Having experienced this on that train that night, and perhaps once or twice as a younger adult or child growing up, it made me think that perhaps there was something amiss here, that the scientists had it wrong, that the experience of the old hag was not a result of undergoing sleep paralysis, but the old hag was some form of entity that feasted upon human fear or sexual energy that has been with mankind since time immemorial, that has the power to put us at that particular moment in time between sleep and wakefulness into paralysis in order to take advantage of us. Now, if you listened to one of my earlier podcasts where I talked about the black-eyed kids, then you would know that I believe that there are a number of different types of parasitic entities that share this space with us. These include demons, black-eyed kids, the old hag, vampire-type entities, shadow people, and so on. I believe, or I've come to believe, that these entities feast upon human fear, sexual energy, and we are, in a sense, their victims. I also believe that we partially create these entities through our thoughts, and yet they have an independent existence from us. And I'll probably cover this in a future podcast. Perhaps I'll invite Anthony Peake back, because this is also a theory that he has written about from a different perspective in his most recent book. Anyway, I'd like to start by recounting to you my experience with the old hag on that train that night just a couple of years ago. I like trains. I really enjoy riding on them. So when I had an opportunity to go to Frankfurt for business, I opted to take the sleeper service in both directions rather than fly. The trip might be longer overall, perhaps 14 hours or so, but it should prove to be more restful than flying, at least in my opinion. I was looking forward to the trip, and as I found my private sleeper compartment at Vienna station, I will admit to being a little excited. I'd decided to try to get some sleep almost immediately that the train left Vienna, as my arrival in Frankfurt was going to be very early, 5:25 a.m, and I'd need to wake up about an hour earlier to dress and eat breakfast. I pushed the 3 regular seats away into the compartment wall, and then pulled the bed down, and after ordering breakfast, I got into bed and switched off the light. For a while, I just lay there, allowing myself to be gently rocked to sleep by the motion of the train. It felt good and I was extremely comfortable. I would sleep in no time. At some point I recall feeling as if someone or something was sitting on my legs. There was a weight there, and as I tried to rise up to see what it might be, I found that I could not move. I could not move at all. I remember that I could still hear the people next door talking with each other in rather loud voices, and the sound of the train on the tracks. The something was now getting up off my legs and moving towards and above me. I was feeling a steadily rising terror, especially when I saw the thing that now floated above me. It was like a whitish grey mist with eyes and a face of sorts. It came alongside me and peered, or perhaps more accurately, leered at me. I tried to scream for help, but nothing came out. I was totally aware of everything. Sounds, smells, sight, my fear, everything. But I was paralyzed. And now the plaything, and at the complete mercy of whatever this thing was that was now inspecting me like a cold piece of meat. Then as quickly as it started, the train suddenly braked, and the resulting jolt freed me. I sat up abruptly and watched as the mist rose up and into the luggage recess of the carriage, where it seemed to linger waiting for whatever I would do next. I switched on the light. It was still there. I could still see it, and yet I was now wide awake and fully functional. I was still very frightened and my heart was racing, but I was also puzzled. What had just happened? Had it been just a vivid dream? I soon came to the conclusion that it was an old hag or sleep paralysis experience, and such a thing hadn't happened to me in decades, since I was a child in fact. Despite that, the thing, the entity, was real. I could still see it waiting above me like a vampire bat hanging in the luggage rack. So it couldn't be sleep paralysis, could it? As I was now wide awake and I could still see this thing. Well, when you write ghost stories for a hobby like I do, it takes something truly very scary to frighten you. I can tell you that I felt a mixture of extreme and brutal fear and yet also puzzlement. I started to pray, and then I performed a self-protection ritual. The thing seemed to have gone, and I commanded it with authority not to bother me again. I went for a quick walk, then came back, and after a few minutes I lay down and began to doze. I awoke again, knowing the thing was back. I could not move, nor scream, yet I could see, hear, and sense everything. The thing was hovering over me, and I'll be honest here, I felt a real sense of sexual excitement along with the absolute horror and fear. Was this thing going to sexually molest me? How could such a discarnate entity made of what looked like smoke and filled with malevolence give me a boner? How was that even possible? For a few moments, it seemed to me as if I were about to be raped. But then it appeared to know that I was not only aware of it, but also its intentions, and instead it moved upwards and peered down at me again. It was a faceless face. The outline of a face with some dim marks or smudges for eyes, nose and mouth, made of some sort of cloudy mist. The malevolence was overwhelming. This thing wished me harm. I started to scream, "Help! Help me!" but no single sound emerged from my lips. I was now really scared because I was at the mercy of this thing, and we both knew it. There was not a thing I could do. Imagine laying paralysed as an entity, eyed you up as its next victim. I continued to struggle, but I could not move. I kept on trying to scream for help. I knew there was a call button just above my head if only I could move. Its malevolence was scaring me, and I knew it was just a matter of time before it started doing whatever it planned on doing. And then again I was fully awake and able to move. I sat up sweating profusely with my heart pounding. I again prayed, engaged in more self-protection, and generally told it to get the hell away from me. Needless to say, I barely rested the remainder of the night, and my day was one of heavy tiredness dogged by the memory of the horrible greyish mist-like face. The experience left me in quite a state for several days until the memory finally faded. Each night I went to bed dreading a recurrence. I knew this was a condition known as sleep paralysis, but what worried me was that I could still see the damn thing while awake. The dream, if that is what it really was, had followed me into wakefulness. The other thing that truly bothered me was the sexual feelings that it engendered in me. How could this shadow, this wraith, give me a sexual response? What did that mean about me? Sleep paralysis is a condition in which a person is aware, but unable to move on awakening from sleep. It may occur in isolation or as a recurring condition, and it is often accompanied by strange sounds, an inability to move, a feeling of being sat on, not being able to breathe, and hallucinations of an evil presence. According to WebMD.com, over the centuries, symptoms of sleep paralysis have been described in many ways and often attributed to an evil presence. Unseen night demons in ancient times, the old hag in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and alien abductors. Almost every culture throughout history has had stories of shadowy evil creatures that terrify helpless humans at night. People have long sought explanations for this sort of mysterious sleep-time paralysis and the accompanying feelings of terror. Sleep paralysis is a feeling of being conscious but unable to move. It occurs when a person passes between the stages of wakefulness and sleep. During these transitions, you may be unable to move or speak for a few seconds up to a few minutes. Some people may also feel pressure or a sense of choking. Sleep paralysis may accompany other sleep disorders such as narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is an overpowering need to sleep caused by a problem with the brain's ability to regulate sleep. So that's what WebMD.com says. Now, according to scientists, sleep paralysis occurs when the brain and body aren't quite in sync when it comes to sleep. During rapid eye movement or REM sleep, dreaming is frequent, but the body's muscles are relaxed to the point of paralysis, perhaps to keep people from acting out their dreams. Researchers find that the brain chemicals glycine and GABA are responsible for the muscle paralysis. In fact, this sort of experience is very common, and it's thought that around 5 to 60% of all people suffer from sleep paralysis at some point in their lives. Some unfortunate people find themselves experiencing it very frequently, while others wake up paralyzed only once or twice in their lifetime. The good news is that it's considered harmless. It is something that I've experienced just a few times in my life, and mainly when I was a teen. Well, I've studied magic and the occult for many years, and in studying these subjects I've also developed a rather different view of reality. A reality that can be manipulated via will, because I constantly create this reality inside of my consciousness. I believe that each of us is a co-creator of this reality that we share called the universe. Strangely enough, these views, known by occultists for centuries, are now being explained in a slightly different way in the world of quantum physics. But the theories being explored by quantum physicists are not new at all. They are the stuff of magic and occultism passed down through centuries and date back to before the ancient Egyptians. Occult simply means hidden. This ancient hidden knowledge is being uncovered by quantum physicists. It's a shame they don't actually yet get what they are discovering. While we occultists use different words, we essentially are saying the same thing as these physicists. If you want to explore this a bit more, might I suggest my novel, The Last Observer, and also my book, The New You? Well, for me, sleep paralysis is just a really neat and materialistic explanation for certain phenomena experienced by humans. But how does it explain the fact that I, and others like me, continue to see the entity that was attacking us for many minutes after our sleep paralysis experience is over? How does it explain bruises left behind from a nocturnal attack? The fact is it doesn't, and it won't ever explain the paranormal because the scientist isn't trying to do that. The scientist is seeking a materialistic explanation. Is it then just our imagination? But wait a minute, isn't everything just our imagination? Our waking life is nothing but an imaginative virtual reality created inside of our brain and our consciousness. Let us explore this different view for a moment. What if there are entities that are like parasites on humanity? Maybe they are mini demons, if you will. And what if they do take energy from our fear and from our souls? What if the modus operandi of such beings is to observe us during sleep and, on awakening, put us into a short state of paralysis so they can exploit us and in doing so consume more of our energy? Well, a whole host of supernatural phenomena would possibly fall into this category, including vampires, succubi, incubi, sirens, and the old hag, to name just a few. Succubi and incubi are said to be the demons that have sex with men and women while their victim is asleep. It is said that they gradually suck the life energy from their victims using this method. There are many interesting stories about such entities, one of which actually involves a perp. Pope Sylvester II owed his rise to the heights of the papacy to the spirit of a woman he called Meridiana. He met her when just a young horny student known as Gilbert of Aurillac. Obsessed with his lustful thoughts, the woman appeared from nowhere and agreed to provide him sex, esoteric knowledge, and money, provided he remained faithful to her. He confessed to this lifelong relationship only on his deathbed, much to the surprise of those around him. There have been many victims of such entities through time, and in doing my research on this, I was not surprised to come across several websites that claim to help you summon your own demon lover. Why not? It probably beats a sex robot any day, which recently all the news outlets have been telling us is the future of human sexuality. Who needs that sort of future if it's possible to summon your own personal sex demon? The Bible is full of stories of angels having sex with humans as well. As early as Genesis 6, we find out that angels would seduce human women given half a chance. The experience of being visited by succubi or incubi often starts with an uncomfortable sensation of being watched. Some report seeing a form or shadow in their peripheral vision accompanied by strange sensations of being touched. This is exactly what I experienced on the night train to Frankfurt. Often, a heavy weight is felt on the chest, and or the hands or legs, making it impossible to move. This may be followed by the sense of having sex with an unseen being. The similarities to an old hag experience are overwhelming, and I believe they're probably one and the same. The difference lies only in the erotic nature of the succubi or incubi attack, which is usually combined with the same terror one experiences during an old hag experience. Some encounters are essentially rape, like those depicted in the movie The Entity, while some are pleasurable and lead to orgasm. Sometimes this encounter rides a thin veil between horror and eroticism, in which the victim is both turned on and terrified simultaneously. The old hag is a global phenomenon, and one that's haunted people since the very dawn of time, and sleep paralysis has been documented for at least 300 years in the scientific literature. For example, a 1664 case report from a Dutch physician called Isbrand van Diemerbroek, called Of the Nightmare, describes the patient's symptoms as follows. In the night time, when she was composing herself to sleep, sometimes she believed the devil lay upon her and held her down. Sometimes that she was choked by a great dog or thief lying upon her breast, so that she could hardly speak or breathe, and when she endeavoured to throw off the burthen, she was not able to stir her members. He diagnosed the case as, this affection is called incubus or the nightmare, which is an intercepting of the motion of the voice and respiration with a false dream of something lying ponderous upon the breast. The motion of the muscles fail. Now, because the motion of the muscles for the most part cease in time of sleep, except the respiratory muscles, therefore the failing of their motion is first perceived by reason of the extraordinary trouble that arises for want of respiration. Now the patient, not understanding the cause in that condition, believes herself to be overlaid by some demon, thief, or other ponderous body, being neither able to move nor to breathe. Such descriptions can be found throughout documented history. I think that the old hag phenomena could be a sort of parasitic entity or entities that feed off human energies, fear, sexual, or both. And without going into too much unnecessary detail, many magicians believe that the physical plane has its parallel in what's called the astral. The astral is the world of thought and emotion, and for something to become a physical reality, it has to first exist as a thought on the astral. There are higher planes of existence too that might be called etheric and mental planes, and the Kabbalistic tree of life is one way to look at the 10 levels of reality or consciousness. On the tree of life, Malkut, physical reality, is in a one-to-one relationship with Yesod, astral, and the occult maxim, as above, so below, is echoed by this relationship. It's enough to understand that everything that exists in the world originated first as an idea or a thought and was brought into the physical world through will or work. To build on this, occultists have the concept of a thought form. A thought form is defined by Wiktionary.com as a manifestation of the consciousness of an individual or group, and to me, it is any concept or idea that anyone has ever imagined. These thought forms are created in the astral realm or mental plane, or mental plane, the realm of thoughts and emotions, and the more emotion involved with the thought, the better and stronger the thought form is. Another term used by occultists is that of Agregore, which is an occult concept representing a thought form or collective group mind, an autonomous psychic entity made up of and influencing the thoughts of a group of people. In fact, it is this occult concept that is behind books like The Secret and the Cosmic Ordering System, in my opinion. Such concepts are used perhaps unconsciously by advertisers and by psychologists, for example, who use visualization of success methods in self-help programs. In other words, despite these being occult theories, they're actually used in very widespread ways through the world by non-occultists. Let's just go a step or two further. Imagine that you spend hours and hours each day thinking of, imagining, and yearning for sex. You imagine the perfect male or female, perhaps even using the image of an actor or actress or someone that you know. You imagine touching and making love to this person for hours and hours on end. What is it that you are doing in an occult sense? You're making magic and creating a thought form. What if a whole bunch of people are imagining the same person or figure? Then you have created an egregore. Magicians do this willfully. They engage in the creation of astral entities to perform tasks for them. See where I'm going? Thought forms on the astral can become self-sustaining parasites seeking human energies to keep them in existence. These entities are created inadvertently by people who constantly think with emotional intent about things like sex, and then they latch on to the creator as a parasite, feeding off of the energy given to them by that person for their continued existence. They're essentially self-created vampires that feed off our own energy. I'm not the only one that thinks this. I know that many others do, Anthony Peake being one, but I did find a website called montalk.net, which actually goes into an attempt to identify some of these parasite entities, saying, just as there are physical pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and parasites, so there are non-physical pathogens in the form of etheric parasites, discarnate humans, aliens, and demonic beings that can attach themselves to a living person, drain their energy, and influence their thoughts, feelings, and personality. The present situation is analogous to how several centuries ago society knew nothing of physical pathogens and the bacterial and viral origins of disease. They fell ill and knew neither the cause nor medical remedy. Likewise, today people get attachments and know neither the cause nor remedy. The site describes a number of such parasitic entities, including etheric parasites, which it defines much in the way that I have previously. Etheric parasites are negative thought forms which are temporary beings generated in the etheric plane. The etheric plane is a non-physical substructure underlying our mental reality, material reality. Etheric energies and constructs are invisible metadata that can influence physical events at the quantum level. In occultism, they are also called tulpas, egregores, or larvae. Etheric parasites are generated by human thoughts infused with emotion and intent. This creates an energetic construct in the ether akin to an eddy in a river, but imbued with artificial intelligence and purpose. Its most common purpose is to continue its own survival by feeding off the same kinds of energy that gave rise to it. If it was generated through hate, it will induce hateful thoughts in its host to suckle more emotional energy of that type. So think about it. After people yearn for sex and imagine it, they create a thought form that interacts sexually with them and attaches itself to them. It keeps them returning to the idea of sex, for that's the energy that created it in the first place. Potentially, isn't this one way in which a succubus or an incubus could exist? I think so. If you want to know more, I suggest that you read my book on the old hag. The book is called Basic Instinct, Erotic Paranormal Contact, The Old Hag and the Mysterious World of Sleep Paralysis. Please check it out. It's available in paperback and also in Kindle format. And there is an audio version under a different title, which you'll easily find if you search on my name, G. Michael Vasey. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I'll be moving hopefully back to a more regular interview type style for the next one. And I've got an exciting guest lined up, so I'm looking forward to talking to them. In the meantime, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do follow, share, and like this podcast series. And in the interim, be careful what you think about and what you wish for. It might just happen.